tell you today a bit about the journey that we've been through at bol.com, where we try to keep a high speed of innovation in an environment and in an organization that's quickly growing and quickly changing. And we've done so by sticking to our core beliefs, which is the belief in autonomy for engineering teams. That led us to some great successes, but of course also came with some caveats and some downsides, and I want to be open and honest about that here today, share with you a bit about the learnings and how we try to mitigate these downsides. Let me first tell you a bit about myself, so you know that who you're listening to. I'm Mirko. I'm one of the directors of engineering at bol.com, and bol.com is one of the biggest online retailer of the Netherlands and Belgium. I've been at the company for 12 years, helping it to grow from about 10 engineering teams to the about 150 that we are today. And also transforming from an online store, because when I joined bol.com, we were an online bookstore that just started to sell electronics and kids' toys, to the e-commerce platform that we are today, where more than half of our revenue is coming via our partners. At bol.com, I'm responsible for what we call the technical platform, the layer that we build upon, on top of our cloud provider to enable the rest of the engineers to get their job done, and also topics that are relevant to the entire tech department, like architecture and tech leads, but also the community and the onboarding team. I'm a software engineer by origin. I've been doing that before I joined bol.com, and also at bol.com. I still do that. Sometimes I have some pet projects, because I still really enjoy writing some code. And when I was thinking about, hey, what would be of interest to tell you today, I was thinking back a bit about when I started with writing code, which was the late 90s and the early 2000s. Anybody here that also worked in that time? I see some hands going up. Cool. I'm not the only old person here. That was mostly, it was the internet bubble. It was mostly web development, web applications. And I'll be honest, back then, almost none of the modern software practices of today I used. I did little automated testing, maybe some unit testing, infra as code, observability for the systems running on production. I did not do almost any of that. Even worse, if I had to try and fix something, I would just sometimes log on straight to the production server to change some configuration files, or even worse, code, or add some debugging logging to see what's going on. Those people that raised their hands, do you also recognize that? No? Yeah. Yeah, that's how we did those things. And I see some people becoming nervous. No worries. I'm not going to advocate for going back to this way of working. But I realized that this way of working did allow me to get my job done very quickly. There was nothing in the way between me and getting my job done. So how different were things when I joined bol.com? Because 12 years ago, we did not even have our own data center. We outsourced all of the stuff. And that meant that we could do... Well, my computer is pushing me for an update. It meant that we could do exactly one release a month for all the teams. One big release. It's only 12 years ago, unimaginable today. And also back then we realized quickly that that would not be enough to delight customers and to keep up with the fast changing market. So we decided to insource our data center in order to get that going. And it really helped us, because we went up to 2 releases a month first, and then even to 4, a release a week. But yeah, if you want to be truly agile and you want to have short cycle times, you want to release all fast and often and get fast user feedback, that's not enough, right? So we said, okay, let's move. We also needed to cut out the waiting time, because the bigger we became, the bigger these releases became. There was always this one team that had a bug, an error that prevented the entire release from going to production. So releasing became also really cumbersome. We also know that in order for teams to thrive, they need 3 things, right? They need Purpose, you need to know what your goal is as a team and why it matters. You need mastery, you need to have the skill set to get your job done. And you need autonomy, right? You have to have the freedom and the ability to do what's necessary to reach your goals. We said, okay, we really need to work on this autonomy and embrace that for our engineers. So we decided to make it possible for engineers to release themselves their code whenever they thought it was a good time to release, bring it to production, they could. I was in the first team that did that first release themselves, and made me feel a bit like back in the late 90s, really great feeling of control and power, and that really helped us. The only thing was that the operations teams, of course, said, hey, listen, if we don't know what's going on in production, when things happen, when things change and why they change, you cannot expect us to be taking the ownership of the operations. And that's fair, right? That's correct. And so we said, okay, then the responsibility of running your service in production, at least during office hours, that needs to go to the engineering team because they're the only ones that know what's going on. And our motto became, you build it, you run it, and you love it, which in a nutshell kind of beholds these responsibilities. And it helped us a lot, like the release frequency went up very fast, first up to tens and later to hundreds times a day, gathering fast user feedback, failing sometimes, but at least fast and often. As we grew further, our operation team became the next bottleneck because sometimes if you wanted new infrastructure, you wanted a new service, you had to sometimes, like this is like on the bottom of the graph, but you had to wait up until 3 months before they were able to help you. And as a team, sometimes you can plan for that, but of course, not always. And all right, we said we have a choice to make, right? Are we going to hire more operation people? Are we going to grow our operations teams? Or are we really going to truly embrace this idea of autonomy and take a big step forward? And we decided to do so. We said, let's go for the path of autonomy. And it meant that we moved away from our data center to a cloud provider, because that would give us the tools for engineers. And they can do that today, nowadays, to set up their own services, their own infra. And actually, today, our teams can have their new services up and running on production in just a matter of minutes, which is really powerful and helps us a lot. But now the operation team said, okay, now we really don't know what's going on anymore, right? You choose your own building blocks because the cloud has some more offerings than we had in our data center. You release when you want. We don't actually, because we are so big, we don't even know what this service, what these systems are supposed to do. So we shifted the entire responsibility for 24/7 operations to the teams too. And also the tools to do so, right? So our teams have access to production, to their own services, to their own pods, to their own databases. And it meant that the responsibilities of an engineering team now looked a bit like this, right? So you build it now means that you not only create the code and test it, right? But you only pick the technology blocks that you think you need and the infrastructure for it. But running it now also means the 24/7 operation, including the backup strategy, including your recovery plan and testing of that. And over time also the loving part changed, right? Because now that we have teams making decisions about their technology, about their setup, it's really hard for a central team to take the ownership, take the responsibility of being cost effective, right? Because that would kind of imply that the central team, in order to be able to take such a responsibility, they would have to say something about what the teams do and how they do it, how to set up their systems, and that would go at the expense of the autonomy of the teams, which is a path that we did not want to go down to or go back to. So also being cost effective, the responsibility for budget shifted to the engineering teams. And the same line of thinking we applied for compliancy. So that became a bigger and bigger issue as we grew, right? Compliancy is all about being in control of what happens in your systems and on production, but also proving that you are in control. And also there we said, hey, for a significant part, that is a responsibility of an engineering team. And so now this is more or less what you need to do as an engineering team. And this philosophy really helps us, right? It helps us, this belief in autonomy really helps us to be more productive, be faster, because teams are so much more in control, and we also see the proof of that. Our platform and our security teams didn't grow a lot over the past years, while the rest of the organization really grew a lot and so much faster. And we see also our cycle times, our DORA metrics, like mean time to change or mean time to recovery, but also just the numbers about the sheer amount of just big emergencies that we have on our production environment. We see that all evolving very, very positively. So that really enabled us to, transform bol.com from the shop that we were to the online platform, the e-commerce platform that we are today, and make bol.com also one of the most beloved brands of the Netherlands and Belgium. So you'd say, high fives, awesome story, do it, and you'll be successful. But promise to be honest, so I'll do so. Because if you look at the responsibilities of an engineer before and after, right, that changed a lot. And before you had it was already a bit heavy. You had to you do the coding, understand the users, do the coding and the testing. But now you have so much more responsibilities. And while that enables our teams to move fast and it cuts down dependencies, it does still cost time, right? You have to put time into that, into all of these extra responsibilities. And not only time, right? Because we can also not expect everyone to be an expert in everything, and that's kind of the downside of this approach is, hey, you have much more responsibilities that cost a lot of time, and it also requires a lot more expertise. So that kind of raises the question: how can we empower the engineers to take on these responsibilities, but still allowing them to do what they're good at, which is innovation and solving customer problems? So we have 3 areas that I'll share with you, 3 strategies if you want to make it a bit more fancy, which I did, where we pay attention to try to mitigate some of the downsides of this approach. So the first one is investing in tooling and in insights, right? It's a bit obvious, but the better the tooling is that we give to our engineers, the easier it is for them to get their job done. So we transformed our operation teams to what we now call platform team, technical platform. And their purpose really is to increase the engineering productivity of the other engineers. And they have multiple ways of doing so. One of them is to create what we call paved road. So a paved road with the most used components or the most used combinations of components, like a simple surface, which is like 80% of our landscape, just consists of a pub sub queue and a Cloud SQL database and a simple Java service. So they try to make that really easy, create sane defaults that the engineers can rely on. But engineers can choose to deviate from that if they want, if they think it's necessary, and also if they think that it's worth the extra effort that they have to put in. So we run this platform really as a product, right? We do product management and all the product ways of working with the internal engineers as our customers. And we also learned that we cannot expect engineers to be looking all the time and create their own insights on how they're doing with these responsibilities. So we also created a lot of dashboards and insights for them. So for example, right, dashboards on, hey, how you're doing as a team on your security status, how is your cloud spent, and how are you on track of your budget or not, stuff like that, because that makes it, everybody needs that, and it makes it so much easier for them to take on these responsibilities. The second one, like I said, nobody can be an expert in everything, and we embrace the idea of what we call enabling teams. Small, specialized teams that handle some of the important stuff or help handling the important stuff, I have to say. So it's a bit of a hybrid option. It might feel a bit counterintuitive, right? It's central teams helping these decentralized teams. So 2 examples maybe to make that to explain it a bit more. So we have site reliability squads, just a couple, 3 or 4, that help a pretty large number of teams to set up and implement SRE principles, right, to be able to do reliable operations. But they're not doing it for them, and they're also not taking over their ownership of the operations from the teams. They really just help them to implement some of the best practices, and once they're done and the team is up and set up and running, they move on to the next team. Another example is our FinOps team. It's a really small team of just 3 people that help with creating insights and doing analysis with regards to our cloud spend. Right? At Bol.com we always say we don't mind spending money, but we hate wasting it. And doing this analysis is really a expert job, right? You really have to dive deep on to see what's going on and how you can improve upon your cloud spend. So they provide these insights in, hey, where do we waste resources? What settings could you use to improve upon your spend? Because once you have these insights, which is an expert job, right? Doing something with the insights is something that the teams can really do themselves. Yeah, but creating them and asking everybody to dive deep into their cloud spend and really analyze that, that's just, yeah, then everybody should be an expert, and that's something we just think we should not do. So we're doing that all of that so that the engineers can really focus on what they're good at, on innovation, and not having to worry about becoming these geniuses in every area. And the last thing that is really important, if you take this approach of autonomy, is to promote knowledge sharing, because the downside of distributing all of these responsibilities to the entire organization is that you also have to build up some of the knowledge everywhere in the organization, and the potential risk of that is that everybody could start to reinvent the wheel, and that's something, yeah, that is just not efficient. So we do not only encourage engineers to share their knowledge, but we really actively organize for that. We have our community and training team to help with that. They create all these sessions either around a group of certain profiles, like sessions around data scientists or around data engineers or around architects, or around certain topics, like 2 weeks ago we had, like every day of the week, a session, a workshop that teams could join, where some experts would help them to optimize their Cloud SQL instances, either for cost or for performance. I'm gonna make it. Yeah. So we're working on these 3 areas, these 3 strategies, right? Investing in tooling, enabling this hybrid, teams, these enabling teams, and by really being careful about sharing knowledge, we try to mitigate some of the downsides of this approach of autonomy for teams, and help teams and help engineers to work efficiently, but also with fun and with ease, and help them to do what they're best at, which is innovation. So, are we there yet? I don't think so. I'm the only one from Bol.com here today, so I could have said yes. But if you ask any engineer at Bol.com, I'm pretty sure they can give you a ton of things that we could improve on. And actually, I could give you that list here right now myself, but I think I only have 3 minutes left. So I'll save you from that. But I think we have still some big steps to make it more easy, more efficient for teams, have less tooling, a bit like in the line of the talk of Daniel. Less tooling and all centralized in one place, which we are now using Backstage for, if you're familiar with that. But also, transforming insights into suggested or semi-automatic actions, where we now say, hey, you just have this instance of your Cloud SQL database running all the time, but it's not doing anything to you. Hey, it's not doing anything. Click on this button, and then I'll switch it off for you to maybe, hey, we switch it off for you. If you want to revert it, click here. You can really make it a lot easier. So to close it off, right, some takeaways. Autonomy truly helps our engineering teams to be fast and efficient, right? Nobody wants to work in an environment like the Phoenix project, for those who read that book. And nevertheless, on the other side, we can only expect so much from people in terms of time and that they can spend and expertise that they have. So making it easy for them to take on these responsibilities is really crucial in order for this way to succeed. So that it really has helped us to make some big steps forward, yielded some great results. If you were to ask me like, hey, if you could do it all over, would you then still take the same route? Then I would do so. And so I really recommend all of you to look at your teams and think about, hey, how can I improve upon their purpose and their mastery, but also in the light of this talk, how can I improve upon their autonomy in a way that fits your organization? And then be open to the downsides of it. Listen to your teams, listen to your engineers. Try to mitigate some of these downsides. So on that bombshell, thanks for listening.